only to trap them between hidden squadrons waiting in silence. The ambush is perfect. Flames leak across Roman sails. Oil pots burst like a thunder. Cleopatra's fire ships, inspired by Syrian design, weave through the chaos. Archers hidden in the masts unleash death from above. And Octavian? He sees it unraveling. From the deck of his command ship, he watches his fleet fracture. Welcome to Omar's Story Nook, where history gets spicy, legends get a remix, and imagination runs wild. Every tale you hear is a whisper of Omar, echoing across time, culture, and the soul. 31 BC, the Battle of Actium. On one side, the young and hungry Octavian, heir to Caesar's name but not his charisma. On the other, Cleopatra and Marc Antony, a queen of unmatched brilliance, a general of fading glory, bound by passion, pride, and political ambition. History tells us they lost, that their ships were scattered, that their love burned in shame, that Cleopatra returned to Egypt only to fall on a poisoned asp, while Rome rose from their ashes. But what if that story were different? What if the winds changed? What if the queen's warships held their line and turned the tide of empire? What if, in that 1 hour of destiny, Cleopatra won? This isn't just about battle. This is about what could have followed. An empire ruled not by Caesar's ambition, but by a woman who understood power, beauty, and legacy like no other. This is the story of a world reborn, not through domination, but through fusion, through intellect, through vision. This is Cleopatra Triumphant, the empire that might have loved and lasted. The waters of the Ionian Sea churn with chaos. Roman triremes bear down, their bronze rams slicing waves like blades. Octavian's fleet, led by the wily Agrippa, has numbers. But Cleopatra has something greater, a plan. She commands from her flagship, the asset, golden prows gleaming under a rising sun, jaguar sails snapping in the wind. She's no passive queen watching from shore. She's on deck, armored in linen and lapis, eyes locked on the horizon, reading the winds like scripture. Antony, at her side, coordinates the pincer. A double envelopment, naval brilliance forged in Greek text and Egyptian instinct. Their fleet lures Agrippa's ships into a false pursuit, only to trap them between hidden squadrons waiting in silence. The ambush is perfect. Flames leak across Roman sails. Oil pots burst like a thunder. Cleopatra's fire ships, inspired by Syrian design, weave through the chaos. Archers hidden in the masts unleash death from above. And Octavian? He sees it unraveling. From the deck of his command ship, he watches his fleet fracture, his destiny slipping between waves. He orders retreat, but it's too late. Cleopatra's navy surrounds him. He barely escapes under cover of fog, fleeing east into obscurity, leaving behind glory, power, and the future of Rome. As the final Roman sail disappears into the horizon, a silence falls over the sea. And then, cheers! The Mediterranean roars, not for Rome, not for conquest, but for Cleopatra, queen of victory, queen of seas. Rome expected a funeral procession. They got a coronation. Cleopatra does not return to Alexandria. She sails undaunted into the mouth of the Tiber, her golden fleet trailing victory behind it like stardust. The eternal city waits in silence. Senators whisper behind togas. Priests clutch incense. Slaves sweep ash from the streets, preparing for what must be the end. But Cleopatra does not march in chains. She arrives on a lion-drawn chariot, robes of woven gold shimmering like sunrise. Caesarion at her side, a son, her heir. Her proof: the blood of Julius Caesar flows through him, and the Roman people know it. The Senate, fractured and terrified, bends. Many kneel. Those who don't vanish. Mark Antony is declared consul for life. Caesarion, named crown prince of the unified realms. Cleopatra, she is no longer just queen of Egypt. She is Regina Imperii, queen of the empire, a title never written until now. Rome begins to shift. The old capital remains, but the heart migrates. Alexandria becomes the second capital, then the first, a city of libraries, gardens, temples, and light. A crossroads of west and east, Latin remains, but it sings with Greek. Hieroglyphs are carved alongside Roman law. The gods of Olympus find kinship with Isis and Thoth. No more hard borders, no more civilized and barbarian. Cleopatra's empire does not erase, it fuses. This is not an empire of fear, it is an empire of design. A new Rome is born, and it wears a crown shaped like a serpent's kiss. Empires built on war crumble in time, but empires built on knowledge, they endure. Cleopatra knows this. She doesn't just want to rule the world, she wants to educate it. And so she begins with her greatest passion: learning. Alexandria becomes more than a port city. It becomes the mind of the empire. The great library, once feared lost, is rebuilt, expanded, reborn. Scrolls from Persia, India, China, and Carthage line its walls. Thousands of new works are written by hands once silenced. Cleopatra invites scholars from every known land, philosophers from Athens, mathematicians from Kush, engineers from the Indus Valley, and poets, oh the poets, from the Nubian deserts to the icy coasts of Gaul. And among them, women. For the first time in empire, women are not just muses or mistresses. They are ministers. They lead academies, head observatories, debate before the court, craft laws, write histories. Cleopatra establishes the Council of Scribes, a governing body of thinkers and strategists advising rulers, not just echoing them. Medicine advances, surgery becomes safer, mathematics moves beyond counting empires toward measuring the stars. The empire funds education like it once funded legions. Children, regardless of gender, learn to read, write, question, and create. The world begins to shift. Where Rome once sought obedience, this empire seeks enlightenment. A golden age has begun, and at the heart of it all, a queen who reads every scroll before it ever reaches her son. Power once came from swords, now it flows through ink, trade, and trust. Cleopatra's empire stretches beyond maps once drawn by Roman hands, not by force, but by presence, by vision, by the reach of culture, art, and diplomacy. Egyptian envoys ride across the burning sands of Arabia, through the Zagros mountains into Persia, and farther east to the courts of ancient India, even into the forbidden palaces of early China. Trade is not just tolerated, it is celebrated. Silks, spices, scrolls, glass flow across the Red Sea and back again. New canals are dug, one between the Nile and the Gulf of Suez, an ancient precursor to what others would only dream centuries later. Egyptian ships now glide through waters that once knew only isolation. On those ships, scholars, merchants, healers, and women ambassadors and diplomats wearing robes inscribed with both Roman law and Egyptian poetry. Cleopatra bans new slave markets, declares that every human has a right to earn freedom. Labor reforms begin. Education is offered as an alternative to chains. Slowly, city by city, slavery becomes shameful, outdated, unprofitable. And while Rome once built coliseums soaked in blood, Cleopatra built amphitheaters of debate, forums where citizens vote on policy, temples where multiple gods sit side by side. Gold still flows, but now it pays teachers, engineers, and public physicians. Peace is not a pause between wars, it is a system. One Cleopatra cultivates with care. This is not the Rome of conquest. This is a Rome of convergence. And on the pillars of this new world, one name is etched deepest: Cleopatra. The sun sets over Alexandria, not as a dying light, but as a promise reborn each evening. Beneath golden skies, temples shimmer beside observatories, and on the throne sits Cleopatra, no longer just a monarch, but a maker of worlds. She rules not with fear, but with foresight, not from behind walls, but beside her people. Her son, Caesarion, stands tall beside her, not as a prince taught war, but as an emperor raised in the glow of books, laws, and diplomacy. Their empire is neither Egyptian nor Roman, but something richer, woven from the stars of both. A civilization born from conversation, not conquest. Rome still exists, but different. Temples stand beside synagogues, libraries beside legions, statues of Isis and Jupiter share space with new symbols of unity. The empire speaks in many tongues, but sings in one voice: prosperity, peace, possibility. Art flourishes, bold and sensual. Scientific texts are etched in gold. Children dream not of glory through blood, but of discovery through creation. And Cleopatra? She grows older but never irrelevant. Her wisdom deepens, her legend spreads. Even as she steps back, she shapes what endures. When she finally lays down her crown, it is not beneath a serpent's bite, but beneath 1,000 flowers, each one planted in the soil of the world she healed. No one forgets her, because history doesn't just remember queens who rule, it remembers queens who reshape what ruling means. Empires rise and fall, but some are dreamed into forever. Cleopatra Triumphant, the empire that loved. Until the next whispers of Omar, stay listening. Cleopatra Triumphant, the empire that loved.